The memories and the moments you'll take away from your short adventure will stay with the kids the rest of their life.
And I guess our philosophy is that we're continually trying to chase adventures.
So one of the tips on when we do long drives together as a family is we always have it planned out. It's really important that you just don't pull over on the side of the road. Number one, for safety, but also to other drivers, especially truck drivers through the night. If you do stop at a truck stop, you need to make sure it's a shared truck stop with caravans, because the truckies don't have room to get in there to kind of set up, because legally they have to stop. So it's really important that you plan out your trips and keep it nice and safe for the family. That's the last thing you want is any injuries happening while you are parked up for the night.
The other thing we like to do is be really prepared when we're in the car. Sometimes we've got a 1 hour trip, sometimes we're on a pretty long trip. So I always try and make sure we've got a cooler with our water, with food prepped. There's nothing worse than the kids are hungry and you need to stop somewhere but you can't find the kind of food you like, or you feel pressured to pull over when you're in traffic or things like that.
When you start towing a van, it's very confronting and daunting. You just need to make sure that you do try and get out and have some practice runs when it's in low traffic areas. So later at night in your local community, and just getting used to how the van goes around corners. Naturally, you can't take corners the way you normally take them. You have to anticipate a little bit earlier and be a bit softer on the actual turning circle of the arc of your steering wheel. As you learn to drive at speeds around that, anywhere between 90 to 100 kilometers an hour on the freeways, sometimes with winds or the way the roads are designed and developed, you will get a little bit of swaying in your caravan. Now, a lot of the vans are fitted with anti-swaying systems, but for ones that aren't, the best bit of advice I can give you is to do what feels comfortable and what's right for yourself. Generally what I like to do, if I get a bit of a sway, I take my foot off the accelerator and really try and hold the actual steering wheel really still and slightly move it, rather than being vigorously trying to bring it back, because it obviously creates more of a sway and a rock. Roundabouts are a little bit tricky. We have to make sure that when we come into roundabouts we have a nice even speed, but we're also managing our turning circle. We have to imagine that the caravan and the car are somewhat like a snake, and we stay on the one line, and it's not sharp, it's nice and smooth, and we be gentle around the steering wheel. Towing a trailer, a caravan, it's just important to make sure you get your electronic brakes set up, get them calibrated at the start, and just make sure the braking system's set up, because that's the first thing I do when I leave my driveway in the street, is actually test the brakes to make sure they're responsive and they're working. Other thing is, as we've said, know all your weights, your tear weights, your gross masses, and then your tow ball weights and your payloads. Another good point is to always make sure you're checking your mirrors. It's also always good to know what's around you. Every time you're kind of driving, you always have different people sneak up underneath you, and it's not that people are impatient, it's just that cars can be quicker at certain stages throughout the trip, through roundabouts or traffic lights and things like that, and people can be a little bit precious for time, so it's always important to check your mirrors and know who's there, because people do sneak up, and it's always good to make sure you know that they're there when you're pulling this big rig. One of Jay's strengths is always picking out things that are happening up ahead for me. There's a turn, or there's brake lights, or there's a truck indicating. All of those things are really important to communicate with each other.
I think working as a team, like if we need to get on the maps, I'm on the maps. If Wes is looking at the road, I'll make sure I've got the kids sorted. I think sometimes even though you want to sit back and relax when you're traveling, you've got to be a little bit on to make sure that you've got the safety covered for the family.
Really, in the caravan, I very rarely overtake. I just find it safer just to stay at the one speed. But if I do have a truckie behind me, I'll get on the two-way and I'll just indicate to them that I'm going to slow down and pull over up here. So if they need to be able to overtake, they know it's clear and safe for them to overtake. The big point also is keeping distance between yourself and the vehicle in front of you, regardless if there's a caravan or not. Just for stopping time. You have a lot of weight behind you. I think that's one thing all beginners really don't understand, is how long it takes to pull up your caravan, which is 2.5 tonne, plus your car, which is around the same weight. So you're kind of moving with 4 tonne of force, let alone the speed you're at. So it's always good to preempt what could happen and enough braking time and stopping time. take your time, be prepared, plan your trip out, make sure the kids are engaged in what they're doing with their food and their books, their electronics, if they have those as well, and then know where you're going to stop, know when you're going to have lunch, know how far you fuel last year, and just remember that it's not a race to get there. You're going to get there when you get there, and sometimes circumstances happen, you have to stop, or there's traffic, or there's an accident. There's no point rushing because the place is always going to be there and you want to make sure everyone gets there safe and sound.